Everything you think you know about Spain's military is probably wrong, because while Spain isn't the country people usually throw into debates about top European powers, the actual numbers, the gear, the modernization plans, and the strategic position show something very different. Let's get right into it. Spain's military power starts with something simple but often overlooked: location. Spain sits on one of the most strategically valuable pieces of real estate in the world. The Strait of Gibraltar, the only entrance into the Mediterranean from the Atlantic, is partially controlled by Spain. The Canary Islands give Spain reach deep into the Atlantic toward West Africa. And then there are the European mainland forces, plus the Spanish territories of Ceuta and Melilla, which border Morocco. NATO planners have openly acknowledged in multiple briefings that Spain's geographic position gives it unique influence over Europe's southern flank and the entire Western Mediterranean. That geography doesn't just look good on a map, it shapes how Spain builds and uses its military. A country that sits on the gateway to the Mediterranean has to think about sea control, trade routes, migration flows, and crises in North Africa, all at the same time. So Spain doesn't just build a land army and call it a day. It builds a balanced force that can project power into the Mediterranean, protect Atlantic sea lanes, and respond to crises from the Balkans to the Sahel. But location alone doesn't make a military powerful. So let's dig into the actual force. According to Spain's Ministry of Defense, the Spanish armed forces consist of roughly 123,000 active personnel, around 35,000 reserves, and an additional 80,000 personnel in the Civil Guard, which is a militarized police force with real security responsibilities. This gives Spain a total manpower pool of more than 200,000 uniformed personnel when needed. And yes, the Civil Guard counts, because in emergencies, counter-terror missions, or border crises, they're part of Spain's overall defensive structure. There's also the Royal Guard, which isn't just ceremonial, and the Military Emergencies Unit, a specialized force designed to respond to wildfires, floods, earthquakes, and industrial or chemical accidents. That unit has become so important domestically that whenever there is a major disaster in Spain, people expect to see them on the news within hours. Now, the first thing you should know about Spain's military is that it isn't huge. Spain doesn't throw raw numbers at problems like the United States or China. Instead, Spain has followed a strategy similar to countries like France or Italy: smaller but highly capable, technologically modern, and fully integrated with NATO command structures. It trades quantity for quality, and it leans hard on alliances. And speaking of modernization, here's something you don't fully appreciate unless you've been tracking Spanish defense budgets closely. Spain's military spending didn't just increase recently, it surged. NATO's 2025 estimates and Spanish government data both show that Spain finally hit the alliance's 2% of GDP defense target for the first time after years of lagging behind. To do that, Madrid increased defense spending by more than 40% in a single year, adding roughly 10 billion euros on top of the previous budget. For a European democracy with big social spending commitments, that is a serious political choice. So, where is that money going? Not just into headline toys, but into long-term capabilities, better pay and conditions to keep professionals in uniform, new armored vehicles, modern artillery, upgraded air defense, cyber defense architecture, improved bases and infrastructure, and a whole suite of systems for joint command and control. A noticeable share is going into telecommunications, satellites, and AI-enabled networks, which Spanish officials describe as building a digital shield for the armed forces. But let's be honest, you're here for the fun parts. The tanks, the jets, the submarines, and all the gear that makes you go, wait, Spain has that? Starting with the Army, Spain fields one of Europe's best Leopard 2 variants, the Leopard 2E, built locally by Santa Barbara Sistemas. Spain operates around 320 of these tanks, along with more than 2,000 armored fighting vehicles, including the Ascod and Pizarro families. On top of that, Spain is rolling out the VCR 8x8 Dragon armored vehicle as part of its big modernization push, giving mechanized units more protection, mobility, and modularity on NATO-style battlefields. The idea is to create brigades that can plug into alliance operations seamlessly, whether that's in Eastern Europe, the Mediterranean, or somewhere entirely different. The Army also operates over 300 artillery systems, a mix of towed and self-propelled guns. But artillery in Spain isn't staying static. According to the Fuerza 2035 modernization program, they're building artillery with ranges exceeding 50 kilometers, upgrading their rocket artillery to reach around 130 kilometers. And here's the eye-opener, planning hypersonic systems with ranges around 500 kilometers by 2035. Those long-range fires would allow Spain to strike deep into an adversary's rear areas, without relying solely on Allied assets. Those hypersonic plans are still in the development and concept phase, so it's fair to say they're ambitions, not realities yet. But the fact that they're written into official future capability statements tells you where Spanish defense thinking is heading. They don't just want to defend, they want credible reach. So, while the Spanish army isn't the biggest, it's becoming one of the most modernized and forward-thinking in Europe. It's moving away from heavy, slow Cold War formations and towards smaller, more lethal, highly networked units with better sensors and longer-range weapons. But if the army is strong, the Air Force might be even more impressive. Spain operates more than 160 combat aircraft, mainly Eurofighter Typhoons and FA-18 Hornets. The Typhoons handle air superiority and high-end missions, while the Hornets are doing a lot of the multi-role work until they retire. According to Airbus Defense and Space and Spanish Air Force disclosures, Spain has already ordered additional Typhoons under the Halcon programs, with more airframes coming in to replace the older Hornets based in the Canary Islands and elsewhere. These jets aren't flying around with dumb bombs either. They're equipped with modern precision-guided munitions and advanced missiles like the Meteor long-range air-to-air missile, which gives Spain serious beyond-visual range engagement capability, in plain English. If you wander into Spanish airspace with bad intentions, they can see you and reach you before you can respond. On top of that, the Air Force operates more than 80 helicopters and over 50 transport aircraft, including Airbus A400M heavy transports and C-295s, many of which are actually built in Spain, that gives the country strategic and tactical airlift capacity to move troops, supplies, and humanitarian aid quickly, both inside Spain and abroad. Above and behind all of this is the Centralized Cyber Defense Command. Spanish defense officials describe it as one of Europe's more capable cyber outfits, and it's fully wired into NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence. That means Spain isn't just defending itself against cyber attacks. It's part of the alliance's broader brain for detecting, analyzing, and responding to cyber threats. Spain also now has an official space command within its Air and Space Force, responsible for satellite communications, space surveillance, and coordinating with European and NATO partners on orbital infrastructure. That might sound abstract, but without secure satellites and space situational awareness, all those modern jets and networks become a lot less effective. But if there's one branch of Spain's military that people sleep on the most, it's the Navy, and that's where a lot of the Spain is stronger than you think energy comes from. The Spanish Navy includes the amphibious assault ship and light carrier Juan Carlos I, a multi-role platform that can carry AV-8B Harriers, helicopters, and a full marine landing force with vehicles. It's the same basic design the Royal Australian Navy uses for its big deck amphibious ships, which is a pretty strong endorsement of the concept. If Spain ever buys the F-35B in the future, the Juan Carlos I is designed in such a way that it could operate them after some modifications and investments, although that decision has not been taken and is still debated. Then you have the escort fleet. Spain fields 11 frigates, including 5 Alvaro de Bazan-class ships equipped with the Aegis combat system, the same family of command and radar technology used on American and Japanese destroyers. These frigates are high-end air defense and multi-mission platforms that regularly deploy with NATO task groups, patrol strategic choke points, and contribute to ballistic missile defense and air surveillance. The submarine arm is in the middle of a once-in-a-generation upgrade. Spain is bringing online the S-80+ class, a new generation of air-independent propulsion submarines designed by Navantia. These boats are intended to give the Spanish Navy a stealthy, long-endurance undersea capability in the Atlantic and Mediterranean. The program had delays and design challenges, but it's now moving forward, and once all the submarines are in service, Spain's undersea fleet will be far more capable than it has been in years. The Navy also has a solid amphibious and littoral warfare capability with a dedicated marine infantry force that traces its history back to the 16th century. It's often described as the oldest Marine Corps in the world. Today, they're trained for everything from shipboard security and amphibious assaults to crisis response, evacuations, and operations with other NATO Marines. And here's a detail that gets overlooked. Spain isn't just operating a modern navy, it's building them for other countries. Navantia, the national shipbuilder, exports advanced surface combatants and support ships to nations like Australia and Norway. When your designs are being bought by other advanced navies. That says a lot about your engineering, your doctrine, and your reliability as a defense partner. So when people talk about Spain being underrated, this is what they mean. Spain isn't just maintaining a navy. Spain is exporting navies. As Spain invests more heavily into the navy in the coming decade, the S-80 plus submarines, the new F-110 frigates, and modernized amphibious platforms will push the Spanish fleet into the top tier of what you'd call medium navies worldwide. Not a superpower blue water navy like the US, but absolutely a force you have to factor into any serious planning in the Atlantic and Mediterranean. But it's not just about weapons. Spain has something a lot of other militaries struggle with: experience. Spanish troops have participated in NATO missions in Afghanistan, peacekeeping operations in Bosnia and Kosovo, maritime security missions in the Gulf of Aden and off the Horn of Africa, air policing over the Baltics, and a range of EU-led training and stabilization missions in places like Mali and the Central African Republic. According to NATO records and Spain's own defense ministry, Spanish units have been deployed almost continuously in multinational operations for decades. That gives Spain a deep bench of officers and NCOs who know what real deployments look like: logistics headaches, coalition coordination, local politics, and the reality that operations are rarely as clean as they look on a PowerPoint slide. Then there is the Military Emergencies Unit, the UME. This is one of the most distinctive parts of Spain's armed forces. It's a standing uniformed unit that specializes in responding to natural disasters and major emergencies, both inside Spain and abroad. When there are wildfires, floods, earthquakes, or industrial accidents, they deploy with specialized vehicles and equipment to stabilize the situation. They've taken part in operations from major wildfires across Spain to earthquake relief missions in other countries. This doesn't look as dramatic as a fighter jet taking off from a carrier, but in terms of human lives saved and domestic credibility, it's huge. It also means the Spanish military is seen by its own population not just as a warfighting tool, but as a first responder in times of crisis. Now, if you're wondering about nuclear weapons, the answer is simple. Spain does not have its own nuclear arsenal, and it does not participate in NATO's nuclear sharing arrangements. That's confirmed in NATO's official nuclear posture. Spain relies on the alliance's collective deterrent, just like many other European members. For Madrid, the focus has been on conventional capability, alliance integration, and crisis management, rather than building or hosting nuclear weapons. But here's the part that really brings everything together. Spain is building a military designed for 2035 and beyond, not 1995. The Fuerza 2035 concept for the Army is all about integrating drones, loitering munitions, robotic systems, improved sensors, and networked command and control architecture. The Air and Space Force is doubling down on cyber defense, space capabilities, and integration into the next-generation European fighter project, often referred to as FCAS or NGWS, alongside France and Germany. The Navy is investing in stealthier submarines, more capable frigates, and better maritime surveillance systems. Across all branches, you see the same themes: unmanned systems, electronic warfare, cyber resilience, and the ability to share information in real time between land, sea, air, and space assets. There's also a big push on defense industry and technological autonomy. Spain is not trying to build everything alone, but it wants enough local capacity to avoid being completely dependent on other countries for critical equipment. That's why you see Spanish companies building tanks under license, designing ships, producing radars and electronic systems through firms like Indra, and assembling aircraft with Airbus. So where does all of this leave Spain in global rankings? Based on aggregated assessments from Global Firepower, SIPRI, NATO data, and the IISS military balance, Spain consistently lands inside the top 20 military powers on Earth and often within the top 10 in Europe. Those rankings are not perfect. They sometimes overvalue raw numbers and undervalue things like training and doctrine, but they give you a rough sense of where Spain sits in the global pack. Now, does that mean Spain can go toe-to-toe with a major superpower like the United States or China? Obviously not, and Spain isn't trying to do that. Its strategy is built around coalition warfare, NATO and EU frameworks, and defending its own territory and surrounding regions, not projecting power on the other side of the world alone. But can Spain project power into the Mediterranean and North Atlantic? Yes. Can Spain defend its territories, including the Canary Islands and its enclaves in North Africa, against most realistic threats? Yes, especially when you factor in the alliance. Can Spain play a major role in NATO's southern flank, securing critical sea lanes, supporting operations in the Middle East and North Africa, and backing up allies on the Eastern Front with deployments and air policing? Absolutely. Can Spain operate air, sea, cyber, and land forces that are fully interoperable with the world's strongest alliance under common procedures, using common data links and command structures? It already does, and it has been doing so for years. That doesn't mean everything is perfect. Spain still has challenges. Defense spending, while increased, remains politically sensitive. Modernization programs are ambitious, and not all of them will be delivered on time or on budget. That's true in every country. Spain has to balance its role in NATO with its priorities in the EU and its own domestic debates about social spending versus defense. But if you zoom out and look at the whole picture, the geography, the budget surge, the professional personnel, the modern army, the capable air and space force, the highly underrated navy, the military emergencies unit, the cyber and space capabilities, and the strong domestic defense industry, you get a very different answer to the question, how powerful is Spain's military, really? Spain's military is not the biggest. It's not the loudest. It doesn't constantly dominate headlines, but it is modern, capable, battle-tested, strategically located, and investing heavily in its future. So the next time someone says Spain isn't a real military power, just remember, the numbers say otherwise. NATO says otherwise. Spain's rising defense budget says otherwise. And the forces themselves, from the Leopard 2 E-tank crews on exercises, to the Typhoon pilots on quick reaction alert, to the sailors on the Juan Carlos Thurer, to the emergency responders in the UME, they definitely say otherwise. And that's the fuller story behind how powerful Spain's military actually is.